The city of Huntsville had always been quiet at night, the kind of stillness that seeps into your bones and makes the whole world feel paused. But on this particular night, something was different. The streets were silent, but the online world was alive, restless, and roaring with whispers. Social media timelines were flooded. Notifications wouldn't stop pinging, and one name sat at the center of it all: Tasha K. The Gossip Queen had just released a new video, and in that video was a familiar face: Martell Holt. Once celebrated, confident, and proud, Martell's face now looked like a man cornered by truth, haunted, exhausted, and afraid. The video opened with Tasha's calm but piercing voice saying just one sentence: "Some truths don't die with time. They just wait for the right moment to come out." Those words set the tone for what was coming. The next frame showed Martell sitting in a car, parked outside his ex-wife Melody's house. His phone was in his hand, his jaw clenched, eyes filled with the same stubbornness that had defined him on reality TV. But this time, that defiance didn't look like strength. It looked like denial. And the world knew, from this moment, that the story was about to change forever. For years, people had watched the messy unraveling of Martell and Melody's marriage. Their arguments played out on camera, their heartbreak became content, and their pain became ratings. But behind every viral clip and every heated reunion episode, there was something deeper, something that couldn't be edited away. Melody Cherie, once the quiet partner standing beside Martell's ambition, had grown tired of carrying the weight of his mistakes. And when Tasha K's video dropped, it wasn't just another scandal, it was a signal. Melody wasn't going to stay silent anymore. The next morning, Melody walked into court with her lawyer by her side. Cameras clicked wildly as she passed, but her expression was calm, almost peaceful. She wore a simple white dress, no heavy makeup, no designer flash, just quiet strength. Reporters shouted questions about revenge and money, but Melody's answer stopped everyone in their tracks. "I don't want revenge," she said softly. "I just want it to be over." Inside the courtroom, however, things were far from over. The tension was thick. Martell arrived late, wearing dark glasses and an expensive suit, the same man who once prided himself on appearance. But today, confidence was nowhere to be found. When the judge addressed Martell asking if he understood the seriousness of the charges against him, a hush fell over the courtroom. Martell took a long breath before answering. "It's all lies," he said, shaking his head. "She's trying to keep me away from my kids." For a brief moment, some people almost believed him until Melody's lawyer quietly opened a folder and slid it across the table. "Your Honor, these are the videos submitted to the police after Tasha K's report. They show the defendant repeatedly near the victim's home despite a court order clearly prohibiting contact." The courtroom froze. The judge signaled for the video to play. On the screen, Martell's car appeared outside Melody's house, headlights dimmed, his voice angry as he argued over the phone. Then another clip appeared, him speaking harshly to Melody at an event, sarcasm dripping from every word. By the time the video ended, the air in the room was suffocating. Martell's lawyer tried to interject, but the judge silenced him. This court will judge on facts, not on words. When the session ended, Melody walked out quietly, ignoring the sea of microphones waiting outside. Sitting in her car, she checked her phone and saw a message from Tasha K. It read, "The world saw you silent. Now the truth is speaking through your silence." Melody didn't reply. She just leaned her head back, took a deep breath, and looked at the sky. Maybe for the first time in years, she felt something close to relief. By the next morning, the internet had already picked a side. The hashtag Justice for Melody was trending on every major platform. News anchors, bloggers, and podcasters were dissecting every frame of the courtroom footage. Comment sections were full of support, prayers, and anger. Anger at Martell, whose reputation was collapsing faster than anyone expected. But then, another twist hit the internet. An audio clip surfaced, allegedly of Martell talking to a friend. His voice was full of rage and arrogance as he said, "I'll never admit I lost. She thinks she won. I'll take it all back." That one recording changed everything. To some, it revealed what they had always suspected, that this wasn't a story about love gone wrong, but about control and ego. Public opinion shifted almost overnight. Martell's name became a cautionary tale, while Melody's became a rallying cry. She had fought her battle quietly, and that quiet had become her greatest weapon.
Meanwhile, Melody began focusing on her children and a new dream. She launched a foundation called Embraced by Melody, dedicated to helping women survive and rebuild after toxic relationships. At the launch event, when a reporter asked if the foundation was inspired by her experiences with Martell, she smiled and said, "It's not against anyone, it's for everyone. I want women to fight to live, not just to survive." Her words spread like wildfire. Within days, she was being called a symbol of resilience, and her name was synonymous with empowerment. While Melody's life seemed to find new meaning, Martell's world was collapsing. His business partners were backing out, sponsors were disappearing, and social media was relentless. His attempts to defend himself online only made things worse. During one of his Instagram lives, he tried to plead his case. "She's lying," he said angrily. "I'm the victim here." But the comments told a different story. "Take responsibility, not excuses. That woman is free from you. Why aren't you free from her?" And one comment stood out the most. "The truth in silence is stronger than the screams." That line echoed across the internet, reposted thousands of times. Martell's frustration grew. Once celebrated as the pride of Huntsville, a successful businessman and reality TV star, he now found himself isolated. Friends stopped answering calls, sponsors were disappearing, and social media was relentless. His attempts to defend himself online only made things worse. During one of his Instagram lives, he tried to plead his case. "She's lying," he said angrily. "I'm the victim here." But the comments told a different story. "Take responsibility, not excuses. That woman is free from you. Why aren't you free from her?" And one comment stood out the most. "The truth in silence is stronger than the screams." That line echoed across the internet, reposted thousands of times. Martell's frustration grew. Once celebrated as the pride of Huntsville, a successful businessman and reality TV star, he now found himself isolated. Friends stopped answering calls, brands distanced themselves, and even his reality show contracts were being reconsidered. The man who once had everything was now watching his empire turn to dust. One night, Martell stood on the balcony of his apartment, staring down at the glowing city lights. His phone was buzzing with calls from his lawyer and PR team, but he didn't answer. He received a text from an old friend, Aaron, that read, "Brother, there's still time. Tell the truth. Get over it." But Martell couldn't bring himself to do it. For him, admitting the truth meant admitting defeat, and his pride would never allow that. While Martell fought his ghosts, Melody was stepping into a new era. Embraced by Melody was growing fast, with women sharing their own stories and finding comfort in her words. She began speaking publicly, not with bitterness, but with purpose. When asked in the television interview whether she had forgiven Martell, Melody said something that stunned viewers. "The apology wasn't for him," she said, smiling gently. "It was for my peace." Those 8 words went viral. They were quoted, printed, and turned into art across social media. Melody had become something far greater than an ex-wife in a public feud. She was now a symbol of inner strength. But while the world applauded her, Martell watched from the shadows. He tried to laugh it off, but inside, he felt the emptiness growing. Each interview she gave, each success she achieved, reminded him of the empire he'd lost, not just in business, but in love, in respect, in self-control. In another desperate move, Martell went live again, trying to sway public opinion. The media's only showing one side. Nobody knows the truth. But this time, people weren't listening. His words had lost their weight. When the live ended, the silence that followed was louder than ever. The man who once dominated headlines now found himself a target of mockery and memes. The internet had spoken, and it wasn't forgiving. As if things couldn't get worse, a new video emerged showing Martell near a parking lot where Melody's children were. The footage spread like wildfire, and public outrage exploded. Thousands joined the #ProtectMelody movement. Women organized rallies holding signs that read, "Silence is a crime. Speaking truth is courage." Melody, watching the protest from home, was overwhelmed. She hadn't asked for this, but she understood its importance. If this helps even one woman speak up, then it's all worth it. Her statement went viral again. The media now painted her not as a victim, but as a survivor leading a movement. Meanwhile, Martell's reality show deal was canceled, his endorsements pulled, and his finances began crumbling. The city that once celebrated him now whispered about him. Every encounter was filled with judgment. He had become a public warning, a living example of how power and pride can destroy everything. One night, in a desperate attempt to reclaim control, Martell called Tasha K. His voice was quieter than usual, trembling. "You showed that video, but you don't know the full story. I'll show you the truth." Tasha paused, then replied coldly, "You probably don't like mirrors." She hung up, leaving Martell in silence once more.
Days later, leaked text messages between Martell and his associates hit social media, where he made sarcastic remarks about Melody and the court. The damage was irreversible. Public sympathy vanished completely. Now, this wasn't just a story of a breakup. It had become a lesson in integrity and consequence. While Martell sank deeper, Melody's star continued to rise. A major business magazine featured her on the cover with the headline, "From Pain to Power, the Melody Cherie Story." The article praised her for turning heartbreak into hope, saying she showed the world that gentleness is also a weapon. When Martell's old business partners saw the cover, one of them reportedly said, "The woman you thought was weak is now the hero of your story." It was the final blow. That same night, Martell stared at his reflection in the mirror for a long time. The face looking back at him was the same, but the light in his eyes was gone. He opened his Instagram, scrolled through the hateful comments, and then did something no one expected. He deactivated his account. No goodbye post, no explanation, just silence. It was as if the noise inside him had finally died down. The next morning, social media exploded with questions. Where is Martell? Has he given up? But Melody didn't respond. She had already chosen peace over attention. When her team asked for a statement, she simply said, "Let's stay quiet. The truth doesn't need defending." Weeks later, the final court hearing arrived. The media was everywhere. Cameras, reporters, and flashing lights outside the courthouse. Melody stepped out of her car wearing white again, a symbolic gesture of truth and calm. On the other side stood Martell, in a dark blue suit, looking worn and heavy. Inside, the proceedings were intense. The judge listened carefully as both sides presented new evidence, including digital records linked to Martell's company, files that Tasha K had hinted at in her earlier reports. When those files were shown, Martell's face drained of color. Melody bowed her head not out of defeat, but closure. She wasn't angry anymore. She was simply done. As the session ended, reporters surrounded her, shouting questions. Do you think Martell is jealous? Will you work with OWN again? Do you support Tasha K's claims? Melody paused for a moment, looked straight at the cameras, and said only one sentence. I have finished my battle. Now it's time for truth to take its place. Those words rippled through every corner of the internet. Truth finds its way became the next viral phrase. OWN Network soon announced a new show titled The Real Truth Behind the Screens, and rumors spread that Melody would return, but this time not as someone's ex-wife, but as a creator in control of her own story. Late that night, Melody sat alone on her lawn watching the stars as her children slept inside. For the first time in a long while, she felt peace, not because everything was perfect, but because she no longer needed the noise to prove her truth. She knew the cost of speaking out had been high, but the power it brought was even greater. The story of Melody and Martell had started as a marriage, turned into a public scandal, and ended as something far more profound, a mirror held up to fame, pride, and redemption. The silence that once hurt Melody had become her armor, and for Martell, the voice that once demanded attention had finally gone quiet. But as Tasha K said in her original video, some truths don't die with time. Maybe this wasn't an ending at all, just the beginning of a new truth, one that would keep unfolding long after the lights of Huntsville went dark.